45 seconds of Luxogos.
Yeah, so?
Long ago, the world was full of wonder.
Narration.
Yeah, so?
And that magic helped all in need.
And no one ever used it for harm or deceit or abused it for power, because that's just not something people do. Signed, Walt Disney.
I'm sure magic was used for selfish reasons by certain wizards, dude. What would be the point of mentioning that? Slytherins don't have anything to do with this film's story.
Okay, Houses Made of Mushrooms is a 100% ripoff of the Smurfs. Gargamel shows up, I'm going to add 1,000,000 sins. Hell, if a cat shows up at some point, I'm adding 500,000 sins just out of pure spite.
Actually, they're from magical folklore. They go by many names. Gnome houses, fairy houses, mushroom houses, toad houses, etc. They're so popular that we turned them into garden ornaments. So, Smurfs actually ripped off magical folklore. Thankfully, there's no patent or copyright on folklore. Yet. Looking at you, Nintendo.
But it wasn't easy to master.
Movie is now making a point about how magic was hard, and so people invented light switches. And that's probably making a great point about the peril of taking the easy way, but here's the thing. It's also bull. We see plenty of magic spells later with no easy parallel. They're telling me that this world could shrink and enlarge things at will, or turn themselves into other people, and they were like, nah, that's too hard. I'd rather drink a milkshake. I'm not saying no one would be sucking down a milkshake, but I am saying that there were plenty of people who would have stuck with it for a chance to make a bigger milkshake, and then drink it while in the form of Daniel Day-Lewis.
I get what you're saying, but I think it's safe to assume they'd stop worrying about those kinds of things, since those could be seen as unnecessary and difficult things to obtain. Being able to enlarge things would most likely be something they just stopped caring about, and disguises would most likely disappear when laws started to be established. Now I'm just guessing, of course, as we don't know the exact specifics of all of this, but that's just what makes the most sense to me.
Also, movie suggests that this world gave up on magic because it was hard to master, and science was easy to master. To that I say, science is hard as bitches. Try it once and you'll see.
I normally don't go after Jeremy's laugh, but that one especially was faker than Manti Te'o's girlfriend. Also, I'm fairly certain they're saying that regular people gave up on magic. Regular people would always have to have a wizard around to do stuff for them, which I imagine would be a hassle. But now we're in a world where everything can be done for them and is automated, therefore making it much more convenient.
And even when magic does have a parallel, it might not make sense. Who is trading free personal power of flight for the absolute nightmare that is flying commercial?
Allow me to make an analogy. We have legs that can walk and take us anywhere, right? Before cars, carriages, or horseback riding, we walked wherever we wanted to go. But then we found ways to shrink that down so we don't have to do it as often, because walking is tiring and takes energy. This same logic can be applied to flying creatures. Flying with their wings can be tiring, and planes can do the job for them.
Your birthday's a day to try new things. Be that new you.
I thought that was New Year's. Birthdays are for self-loathing and calorie bombing.
But this specific birthday is Ian turning 16, which is pretty close to adulthood. Some jobs hire kids that young, and you can even learn to drive around this age.
You could definitely learn a lot from Quests of Yore. You want to play?
Quests of Yore is obviously supposed to be a version of Dungeons & Dragons, but isn't the whole D&D thing about imagining a fantasy world? In this world, D&D would basically be the game of life. And do you know anyone who gets together to play life?
Well, Barley is alone in playing this game, so...
Burgershire, now serving second breakfast. Get it? This is an LOTR reference, dweebs.
You're sitting the movie for making an arbitrary movie reference? Now you know how annoying I found your Big Hero 6 video to be.
This was my dad's. Lightfoot? Wilden Lightfoot? Yeah.
Holy coincidence, Batman. Not only does this guy happen to be in the Burgershire restaurant right at this second, but he also sees the sweatshirt and then also happens to have known dude's daddy in college? That is some bullshit.
I've literally met a few people who just happen to know who I am or anyone who's related to me, and I have no idea who they are. Granted, I live in a small town, but maybe the same is true here.
Well, learn to drive, be like dad, and invite people to a party are all pretty harmless looking, unless your dad is Rusty Nail.
Jeremy says something random cliche.
And was wondering if you wanted to come over and get down on some cake.
Look, however much heart this movie has at the end, and I've been told it has some, this opening 10 minutes of exposition and setup is a snooze fest I'd expect from Illumination, not Pixar.
You just played a scene of Ian trying to figure out how to invite his friends to a birthday party. How is this exposition? You literally point that out every chance you get, so you'd think you know what that word means.
What up, dudes? I'm not having a party tonight.
Adolescent practices their important social situation speech ahead of time before completely botching it in front of the ones they were trying to impress cliché.
Then why did you say this scene has exposition in the previous scene?
Ooh, whoops. Sorry. Didn't just file those.
Joking about having dozens of parking tickets. Look, I hate the asshole parked illegally the one time I see him, but if I knew he had not only gotten a ticket then, but had also gotten 3 dozen other tickets, and none of them meant anything and he never changed, then I would be voting for parking reform and maybe worse.
Old man yells at cloud cliche.
Movie is now double expositioning us by reading the same letter it narrated to us at the beginning of the movie.
The first 2 sins in this very video were you repeating sins you've always done, logos and narration. You acknowledge this is annoying because it's repeated. So why do you always have those 2 sins in every other video?
Back to life? That's not possible.
Well, it used to be, but people got bored with trivial things like bringing people back to life because they're apparently just that lazy.
Maybe this power was a lesser known ability that was kept a secret and their dad had to dig up for it. Again, no, I'm just saying this is a possible explanation, so no sin on you.
Rebirth. Tomorrow's sun is set. One day to walk the earth.
Spelling mistakes.
Except Barley isn't doing it wrong. He just simply doesn't have the heart's fire like Ian does.
Only once is all we get. Grant me this rebirth.
Later we find out that magic only works if you speak it from your heart's fire, and that the higher the spell level, the more difficult it is to summon the strength for it. Yet here, Ian just mumbles some lines without even holding the staff, and because the story needs it, the magic is ready to pop. I'm just saying I learned pretty early on that if you want the magic to happen, step 1 is actually holding your staff.
Which he does after saying a few more words. Besides, you're forgetting that this specific spell requires a phoenix gem, which probably works differently from the other spells. By all available evidence, that seems to be the rule.
Tonight, the role of Barley will be played by Quentin Tarantino.
Wouldn't they have to be barefoot in order for this joke to make sense?
He can't hear us.
Duh! He has no ears.
Jeremy yells at the screen cliche.
A person can only do magic if they have the gift.
I'm pretty sure this very movie told me that magic died out because it was too hard and science was easier, so having the gift is some bullshit.
No, it's not. Just because you have the gift, it doesn't mean the magic is suddenly easy. We see Ian having learned how to use all the spells throughout the rest of the film, which proves my point. To make another analogy, some people are really good at certain things like sports or musical instruments, but you still need to practice in order to do it properly.
Discount Magic the Gathering is about to save the day.
I thought this was Dungeons and Dragons or Life. Now it's Magic the Gathering?
Also, Mount Doom, another LOTR joke. I thought Pixar movies were all about making Pixar in jokes.
Didn't you sin Toy Story 2? You know, the movie that made numerous references to Star Wars? I even remember you sinning those scenes.
Seriously? Buzz breathes like a discount Darth Vader? And he's white too? I know Gary Reinstrom is a big part of the sound of this movie, but damn dude, how many times are you gonna go to that Star Wars well?
You killed my father! No, Buzz. I am your father. No!
Parody note. Also, this line of toys is a serious ripoff of Star Wars, from the story to their sound effects.
My days of sending people on dangerous quests are over.
So, there are still creatures living who were alive during the before times? This communal magic amnesia makes less and less sense the further the movie goes.
Or manticores can live for hundreds of years.
She won't let them take the map because she thinks that constitutes her sending them off on a quest. And she's worried about getting sued and losing her tavern. That's the reason they can't have a piece of paper off the wall that anyone could just take a picture of and follow the, hey, why don't they just take a picture of the map?
Probably because Ian's phone broke when he tried to bring their dad back and Barley doesn't have a phone. Also, you earlier brought up things from later in the film, implying you've seen this movie before. So you know that there's a curse around that Phoenix gem, which is why Corey doesn't want them going, along with being scared of her business in this tavern.
Well, to be fair, that could also be used to spell nap investor, spa inventor, or Venus porn. So, you might need to check out Philip Grimm, Ancient Rome, or the video you filmed that one time of yourself masturbating in the mirror.
Expressway is a little too obvious. On a quest, the clear path is never the right one.
The does that mean?
That quote is a metaphor for growth, and what it means is that we have to be brave and take risks in order to succeed in our goals and not just choose a standard option since it may not be the right method. And to give another way of explaining the meaning of that quote, I'm going to do what I did in my video for this film and quote Miss Frizzle by saying that it's an opportunity to take chances, make mistakes, and get messy.
We take an ancient trail called the Path of Peril.
Considering you just found out about Raven's Point and all your previous adventures have been on a tabletop game, how did you have this information right at your big blue fingertips?
Maybe because Barley is a nerd and study all these things the same way Christians tend to study the Bible?
In college, I took a girl on a date one night. We drove up to Chicago, an hour away, had a fancy dinner, saw Fiddler on the roof someplace, and on the way home...
Skip! Elbows!
What?
Elbows up! No, it's too high!
Man, f***ing elbow position cannot be important for the spell, and it's not funny, so why is this bit here in the movie?
What do you mean it can't be important? How do you know that? Where are you getting your information from? Do you have the rules for these spells, or are you just pulling them out of thin air? I think it's the latter.
a grown man.
Is this comedy?
That's the same thing I say whenever you sing in these videos.
Got in a little tax trouble a few years back, but don't worry, I know just where to find it.
The Manticore is about to pull an OJ, and the sin is this movie making me use the phrase pull an OJ.
Well, that sounds like a you problem, so I'm gonna take Luke's award and give it to you.
Hey!
So he blasts the air, and the sprites all go flying, but Tiny Barley doesn't. Then Tiny Barley lets go and flies out the window, but Ian catches him, and I'm beginning to think this movie has no stakes whatsoever.
Once again, you think that stakes only means characters dying, even though the bigger stakes of this film are finding a Phoenix gem before time runs out so they can see their dad.
You can disguise yourself to be anyone you want. Disguising yourself is a lie, so you must tell the truth to get by. As long as you don't tell a lie, the spell will be fine.
God damn it, this movie just keeps making up new rules and new loopholes every other scene, and because said loophole rules create physical comedy, I'm expected to laugh. This might be the laziest Pixar script since Cars 3. And yes, Cars 2 is a worse movie, but it's a more original story. Cars 3 is just cars all over again.
Why do you always do this, Jeremy? It's magic. It's not real, so the writers can make up whatever rules that they want. You're speaking as if there's a basis the writers should have to follow, but there isn't. Also, Cars 3 wasn't Cars all over again. I don't remember McQueen having to teach an apprentice in that film.
Answer every question with a question.
Now we're stealing from 40-year-old virgin.
That guy's not all there today.
Yeah, he does seem a little off.
It's Weekend at Bernie's. It's Weekend at Bernie's. Pixar has now stooped to stealing visual jokes from a movie released in 1989.
The guy who sinned this movie for referencing Lord of the Rings is now making references to other unrelated movies himself.
Bottomless pit. Whatever falls in there, falls forever.
But how do you know this? Sure, you played your Quests of Boar game or whatever, but you had no idea this was even here.
Because, unlike you, Barley passes math classes and thus can put two and two together.
Just say Bridrigar Invisia.
God damn it, this guy knows fucking everything. This movie is literally go a few minutes, get info from Barley. Go a few more minutes, get info from Barley. Go a few more minutes, etc.
Well, yeah, the movie has made it clear many times that Barley studied everything about magic, so why wouldn't he know this?
Now we're stealing the invisible bridge you need to step out in faith on from the Last Crusade.
Pretty sure that bridge didn't need to be created with magic.
Believe with every step.
But he did believe with that step. He was excited and confident. Maybe he meant concentrate. Maybe he meant focus. Maybe he meant the story needed another fail so the tension could amp up.
To pull a comparison from the Bible, the Apostle Peter was able to walk on water by putting his faith in Christ. But when he looked out at the water, he let fear take over and almost drowned until he was saved by Jesus.
Arcane lightning.
You said that's the hardest spell.
I forgot that part, but I'm sure it happened. And the point is that this movie has given me so many spell rules, I no longer know who to trust.
Were all those rules given by literally one person?
I'd give all the sins back if it went like the movie Sideways and the van immediately wrecked and did no good.
No, you wouldn't.
This is actually kind of cool.
But also impossible. I'm not saying cheese puffs wouldn't float. I'm just saying that in liquid and at that speed, that puffy cheese phallus would disintegrate faster than a non-important MCU character before Endgame.
Hold up. Are you saying that Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Black Panther, or most of the Guardians of the Galaxy weren't important? Also, Jeremy says boner.
Good to see they have time to slow down the Cheeto Express for some magic lessons and eventual heart-to-heart conversation, when just moments ago they were in the ultimate time crunch and speeding down this cavern. I guess the time pressure is really only on when the movie needs it to be.
Considering Ian has a timer on his watch, I think he can easily figure out that they have time for this.
This 2 minutes and 13 seconds will translate to 15 minutes and 7 seconds of movie time. Because magic?
That's supposed to be 2 hours and 13 minutes.
It's some kind of puzzle!
This movie Indiana Jones is so hard, I'm surprised they don't end up barely making it through this closing door or have to reach back under just in time for...
Sending a movie for Indiana Jonesing. Indiana Jones is better than Dial of Destiny.
Why does the curse on those who seek the Phoenix Gem immediately start killing the nearby school children, and not those who started the curse?
But it doesn't kill them?
By the time the red evil is transforming itself into a dragon via concrete slabs, I'm tuned way the f*** out on this bitch. Guessing that by the end the heroes win, order is restored, and my college girlfriend loves me again, right?
Nah, that girlfriend probably does.
What do you want? The gem? Fine, take it!
Suggestion: if you're ever being pursued by a mystical curse attached to an ancient relic, don't try to fool it by tricking it with a cheap imitation. Real mystical curses see right through that shit. Trust me.
Jeremy doesn't know what distractions mean.
Manticore Ex Machina.
A Deus Ex Machina means a solution that came out of nowhere. Considering the movie already showed that these two were on their way here this whole time, I don't think you can say they came from nowhere.
The finale of this movie is a ripoff of the halfway point action scene in Goblet of Fire, which is to say that the finale of this movie is not very original.
What, because there are dragons? Are we saying How to Train Your Dragon or The Hobbit are ripoffs of that movie because they had dragons too? Doesn't that just seem a bit unfair to you?
Watching Ian watch his dad interact with and hug Barley makes me realize Ian got kind of a deal here. I know the movie makes Ian okay with it, but that's bullshit. Ian should get to see his dad.
But you said it. The movie makes Ian okay with this because he realized Barley was the perfect substitute for his dad, which you even acknowledged earlier, and removed the sin for.
Damn it, Pixar. How did you sneak that whole brother as surrogate dad message up on me like that? And here come the emotions. Damn you, Luxo Jr. and your mystical power over my tear ducts.
Also, what is this sin anyway? Who are you to suggest Ian should have gotten to see his dad? Are you the screenwriter? Did you create these characters? You don't have the authority to decide these things, and thank God for that, because your media literacy is as bad as the dad dance moves in Wizard Name.